Welcome back, YouTube audience. This is Rich again, and my next exclusive video blog will be about the 10 NBA teams that's never won the NBA title, and I'm going to rank them from 10 to 1 which team would most likely win an NBA title first. The 10 teams that have never won an NBA title are as follows: the Brooklyn Nets, the Charlotte Hornets, the Indiana Pacers, the Los Angeles Clippers, the Memphis Grizzlies, the Minnesota Timberwolves, the New Orleans Pelicans, the Orlando Magic, the Phoenix Suns, and the Utah Jazz, and the Indiana Pacers. Those are the teams that have never won an NBA title. The NBA does not consider the NBA considers that the Oklahoma City Thunder won an NBA championship while they were the Seattle Supersonics back in 1979. But really, it's 11, but the NBA officially counts it at 10. But first, don't forget to listen to Crystal's Time Machine on WCAP 980 out of Lowell, Massachusetts from 9 to 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday night. She'll take your request, and also follow Crystal's Time Machine on various social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. Okay? And on to the video blog. This video blog will list the 10 teams from most most unlikely to win an NBA championship to the one that's most likely to win the NBA championship first of the NBA teams that have never won an NBA championship. And number 10 on this list is the Charlotte Hornets, which they've been in the league since 1988, and the NBA's history with Charlotte from 1988 through 2002, and then again in 2004 to date, even though from 2004 to 2014, the Charlotte Hornets were called the Charlotte Bobcats. The Hornets have never made an NBA final. They've never even made a conference final. And they've only won maybe 3 playoff series in existence. And even though Michael Jordan owns the Charlotte Hornets, they don't have very significant talent during their history. They've had a few players like Orlando Mourning and Del Curry and Larry Johnson, but they were and Muggsy Bogues, but they weren't really serious NBA contenders. And then since Charlotte came back in the league, they've been one of the worst teams, and they've only had a few all-star players like Kemba Walker and Lamar Ball, but I think the Hornets might never win an NBA championship in my lifetime. Number 9 on this list is the LA Clippers, who came into the NBA in 1970 as the Buffalo Braves, and then in 1978 they became the San Diego Clippers. Since 1984, they've been the LA Clippers, and this has been a cursed franchise. They've only made one conference finals in 2021. And for many, many years, the Clippers were one of the worst teams in the NBA. They had a very bad owner in Donald Sterling, who was very cheap, and he also said a lot of inappropriate comments. But the Clippers have had some talent on their roster, like Blake Griffin, Chris Paul, Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George, among others. But they blew 3-1 playoff series leads, first in 2015 against the Rockets and 2020 against the Nuggets. And the Clippers, even though they're going to get a new arena, they're a cursed franchise. So I think they're never going to win an NBA championship. They're one of those franchises in sports where they're always cursed. Number 8 on this list is the Indiana Pacers, who started in 1967 in the old ABA, and then in 1976 they came into the NBA. And the Pacers have been very competitive over the years. Actually, they made the NBA Finals in 2000, but they lost to the LA Lakers. Probably the best chance the Pacers had to win an NBA championship was around 2004-ish, because they had one of the best teams in the NBA at that time with Jameer O'Neal and Ron Artest. They lost to the Pistons in the Eastern Conference Finals in 2004. I don't know if they would have won the NBA Finals that year, but I think that probably was their best chance. In 2013, 2014, the Indiana Pacers made the Eastern Conference Finals with Paul George as their star player, but they ran into LeBron James and Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade. There was no way they were going to win that series. No way. And Indiana's in the middle of a rebuilding process, so it could be a long time before they won't be a competitive team again. Number 7 on this list is the Utah Jazz. They started in 1974 as the New Orleans Jazz, and in 1979 they relocated to Utah, and they've been in Utah ever since. First few years when they were in existence, they only had one star player, Pete Maravich. But in the 1980s and 1990s, they had Karl Malone, John Stockton, Mark Eaton, Jeff Hornacek, among others. They made the NBA Finals in 1997 and 1998. They lost to the Chicago Bulls both times. They were very competitive series. That was probably the best chance of them winning the NBA championship. They had the best record in 2001, while they had Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell on the team, but they were bounced in the second round. They traded Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert in 2022, and they're building around Lauri Markkanen, and Danny Ainge is their general manager now. So I would not be very shocked in the next few years if Utah contends in the Western Conference again, but I think they're a little light years away from making and winning the NBA Finals. Number 6 is the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic came into the NBA in 1989. They had a few years of struggling in an expansion team, but they got Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway back-to-back years, 1992, 1993. They made the NBA Finals in 1995, but lost 4 straight to the Houston Rockets. Shaq left in 1996, and Penny faded away. They got Grant Hill and Tracy McGrady in 2000, but they were unable to win with them because Grant Hill was hurt a lot. Tracy McGrady, was tired of losing. 2004, they had the worst record in the NBA. They got Dwight Howard. They left. Dwight Howard led them to an NBA Finals in 2009, but he requested to get traded from the team in 2012, and they've been very bad ever since. But I think Orlando's one of these teams. If they get the right players that turn into superstars, they might contend for an NBA championship. Number 5 is the New Orleans Pelicans, which they started in 2002 when they were relocated from Charlotte to New Orleans, and this is when the history of the Pelicans started. The Pelicans have had some decent players over the years, Chris Paul and Anthony Davis, but they never stuck around long term. The Pelicans have never made the NBA Western Conference Finals. 2019, they drafted a possible generational talent in Zion Williamson, but he's frequently hurt. And they have some decent pieces like Brandon Ingram and a few others. If Zion Williams is healthy enough, and with him and Brandon Ingram, if they get a couple of good pieces, this team could be a team to maybe make the NBA Finals or win the whole thing. So I might give this team maybe 50-50 of winning an NBA championship if Zion is healthy. Number 4 is the Minnesota Timberwolves, which started in the NBA in 1989, but and for the first several years, the Minnesota Timberwolves were awful, but in 1995, they drafted Kevin Garnett, and by 2004, they had the best record in the Western Conference, making it to the Western Conference Finals, but they got bounced by the LA Lakers, and they had 14 straight years of not making the playoffs. 2018, they make the playoffs again, and in 2022, they got Rudy Gobert, plus they had Anthony Everett and Carl Towns Williams, which I think if they could stay healthy and have chemistry, that I think they might be a team that might make the NBA Finals in the near future. Number 3 is the Memphis Grizzlies, who came into the league in 1995 as the Vancouver Grizzlies. 6 years later, they moved south of the border, and they have had a horrible team for the first 8 years in existence. But when they got Paul Gasol, they became a playoff perennial for a few years. But then they traded him to the Lakers, and then they slumped for a while. They put together some decent teams in the 2010s, actually making it to one Western Conference Final in 2013, but they were bounced by the San Antonio Spurs. Recently, they got J.A. Morant and Jared Jackson Jr., and they have a talented team, and they could maybe break through in the next couple of years, provided J.A. Morant's still with the team. Number 2 on this list is the Brooklyn Nets, who started in the ABA in 1967 as the New York Nets. In 1976, they went into the NBA. They were rebranded as New Jersey Nets in 1977, but through their first 25 years in the NBA, they were very mediocre at best. They didn't have too many star players. And in 2001, that changed when they got Jason Kidd. They made back-to-back NBA title games, 2002 and 2003, but they lost to the LA Lakers and San Antonio Spurs. They had some decent teams over the years. The best chance they could have won an NBA championship was in 2021 when they had Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and James Harden on the team, but they lost in the second round, and they broke them up, and they have kind of, not so good of a team right now, but Brooklyn's in New York City, so I think a lot of players probably would want to play for the Nets, and I wouldn't be shocked if they get big name players in the next couple of years and maybe finally break through winning an NBA championship. And the number 1 team that's never won an NBA championship, most likely to win the NBA championship, in the next few years is the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns came in the league in 1968, and for the first several years, they were very mediocre. They made a surprise run to the NBA Finals in 1976, but they got bounced by the Celtics in 6 games. And in the 80s, they had decent talent like Kevin Durant and Kevin Johnson and Tom Chambers in 1992. They got Charles Barkley. They made the NBA Finals in 1993. And for the next 15 years, they were like a very competitive team. Had Steve Nash in 2004. He won back-to-back NBA MVPs, 2005, 2006. But the Suns never made the NBA Finals during his run. And for 10 years, the Suns missed the playoffs, but they got Devin Booker and DeAndre Anton. And in 2023, they got Kevin Durant, even though Kevin Durant's on a little bit of the backside of his career. The supporting pieces are good enough. And if Kevin Durant stays healthy and Devin Booker and others step up, I would not be shocked if the Phoenix Suns win an NBA championship in 2024. That's about it. I'll be back soon. Thanks for your support. Good night, everybody.